And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode 16, I want to give everybody a quick reminder about Revved Up recaps. After every Detroit Pistons game, me and Ryan hop on Zoom and we talk about everything that went on in that matchup and where things went wrong, where things went right. And we kind of break everything down, statistics to just eyeballing the game of basketball. So make sure to turn on your post notifications and also subscribe, because you can't miss out on recaps. You got to be in the know, especially if you missed the broadcast of the actual game. You got to watch the recap so you know what's going on day to day with your beloved Detroit Pistons. So make sure to subscribe. And then also, if you're watching episode 16, make sure to leave a like while you're here. You can't leave without leaving a like, I feel like. And then also, if you're part of the Pistons community and you want to share some love, go share us and just kind of spread word about the Revved Up boys, because we're loving what we're doing and we want to keep doing it. So make sure to show the love. We are officially at episode 16. So really week 16, which is just absolutely nuts. But we are coming back from the All-Star break and there are 23 games left on the season. And we kind of want to talk about what we can expect from the Detroit Pistons, especially with a new team with James Wiseman. It kind of feels like everything's been flip-flopped with the missing Sadiq Bey and then Kevin Knox missing in action. So we kind of want to talk about what it looks like and what we kind of expect, but also what we would be happy with the Pistons, not just give the Pistons these high expectations of turning things around, but what it might look like and what the little wins we can take away from. How did you approach this topic today, Ryan?
I broke it down. I was asking my dad, and he's a longtime Pistons fan. And I was like, so what would you want to see? Because he's been watching the Pistons longer than I have.
Totally.
And he said individual growth, better team defense, and more consistent meaning like competing every night.
Right.
And so I completely agree with that, because that's something that our team really struggles with in the sense of our defense sucks.
It can,
It really does. And just individual growth is a big thing in a losing season.
For sure.
And then I agree with competing every night, because we don't do that a lot.
No.
There's games where we go and let teams go on a run of like 15 plus points.
Yeah.
And then how do we expect to win out of that? You can't unless you just play stellar defense the rest of the game, which we need better team defense. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if we're more competitive and consistent and each individual player is growing and our defense all around is better, I think that's what we need to look for the rest of the season.
Right. And the Pistons have proven that their offense is pretty solid. We don't really struggle with cold streaks the way we have in previous seasons. Adding Bojan, having guys like Livers and Burks and Hamidou, who's finding consistency offensively, that's big. And so offensively, we can keep up with high top level teams. But then, like you're saying, our defense just kind of crumbles at points where the communication's just not really there. And we've talked about the Pistons missing a vocal leader. That's why I'm going to be kind of watching how James Wiseman carries himself. Maybe not in the next 5 to 10 games, but those last like 12 games of the season, I kind of want to see how he's integrating himself vocally, not just his skill, because the Pistons without Cade Cunningham is kind of missing that vocal leader, because we at times see Isaiah Stewart kind of step up into that role, but I don't think that's naturally what he is. I think that's kind of him forcing his hand. It's kind of like teaching a dog new tricks, some would say. So I think if we can find some consistency with defense, I think that would be huge. And I think that can decide games for us.
Yeah. And in focusing on offense, more really,
right?
In a sense of like, where are our mistakes? The Pistons average the 7th most turnovers per game.
Yeah,
that is not good.
Yeah,
they average the most fouls per game.
Yeah,
that's not good. Those are the big, like, stand out of the box score stats.
Yeah,
if any. And so when we expect to win, and yet we turn the ball over constantly, and then we foul constantly, it is not good. Like, everybody on our team this season is averaging at least a foul and a turnover per game.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah.
That's not winning basketball. You can't do that in order to win.
Right.
Even guys like Rodney Magruder, he barely plays, and yet he's still averaging a foul and a turnover a game.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Right.
My point is, though, if we cut back on those, which, you can expect that from like a young, unexperienced team. You can expect this. But there's still veterans on our team like Bojan, who's averaging like 3 fouls, or other guys that have been in the league for a hot sec.
Right.
And they're veterans. They shouldn't be fouling or turning the ball over this much, but yet they still are.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they've been playing with this team for so long in these stretches where it's like they're getting used to just playing as the rest of the team is playing. But I hope not, because there's no way, if you're that experienced, that you should be committing that many fouls or that many turnovers per game. It's just not right.
Something that I think we should try to expect, hopefully, is to find the chemistry keeping on its course. Yeah. I think the team has done well, and it's gotten better throughout the season. I think the guys do like each other off the court, so I think that helps. But we want to see strides in the right direction with the chemistry, because it's tough to go through losing seasons. Yeah. Isaiah Stewart and Killian Hayes are on their 3rd season of rough overall 83 games. And Jaden Ivey, we see at times get visually frustrated. So these guys need to keep their cool, realize that the good roads are ahead, and keep the chemistry going, play cards on the plane, do all these things that get to know everybody well, and keep the spread and the love on and off the court. Something that is interesting to me, I'm going to point out 2 guys that I want a close watch on for us, and then also as just a regular Pistons fan that's watching this. Isaiah Livers is in a very interesting situation right now, because he no longer is following up Saddiq Bey. And we've seen him go through streaks of showing shades of a very talented scorer. Yeah. And we saw at Michigan him be a very prestigious player and show that dude's a hooper. Yep. And now that Saddiq Bey isn't on the court with him, he can now fill that role. And I really want to see if he's capable, not just capable, but also willing to fill that role. Because, we've seen Weaver be willing to move guys. And if Livers, his 2nd season, I'm not going to say a goose egg, because he's shown shades of being very good, but he's not been what we've wanted him to be. So I'm interested to see how Livers plays in these last 23 games with no Saddiq Bey. His minutes are going to have to go up a little bit because of no longer having Bey at the 3. And I want to see what role he fills, if he steps up to the occasion. Because if he doesn't, I could see him getting thrown in a trade this offseason. His future is in question depending on his play of these last 23 games.
To that, I will say, I know Weaver for a fact loves him still.
Right.
And everything. So not necessarily a trade, just more of like, I'm not going to give you as many opportunities as you once had.
Or minutes.
So it's very crucial to see what he does in this remaining half of the season. You look at Bojan as an example here, with Livers potentially playing good. If Bojan does what he does normally and is kind of a ball hog, I hate saying that.
Well, he's not the biggest passer.
But he's not a huge passer. He likes taking control of the games.
Totally.
And so if he does that, and let's say Livers is out there, you may not see Livers really touch the ball, or at least get a single shot up.
Yeah.
So if they're on the court together, Livers he was overshadowed by Sadiq. But now in this situation, he's going to be overshadowed by Bojan. And I think that's one of the big takeaways for Sadiq being traded, is because he was overshadowed by Bojan, because Bojan didn't like giving up the ball that much.
Right.
So that really took away shots from Sadiq. That took away opportunities when Sadiq is on a hot streak to get the shots up.
Totally.
And so I could see that potentially happening with Livers in this situation. I hope it doesn't, because Livers is a different player than Sadiq in the sense of what he brings to the team, in the sense that he's an all-around guy and not just a shooter. Whereas Sadiq was really a 3-and-D, but struggled on D, but was a good shooter, just struggled at times. But if Bojan does what he did to Sadiq with Livers, then I don't know what's going to happen with Livers.
If Livers doesn't step up in the last 23 games, does that just kind of cement that the Pistons are even more going to go for a small forward in the draft?
I think with the Sadiq trade in general, I think Weaver was looking to go for a small forward in the draft.
Right.
Because this upcoming draft class is actually loaded with wings. This is probably the most loaded wing draft in a while. Probably outside of since like the LeBron class with Carmelo and everybody.
Or maybe like Jabari Parker and like Andrew Wiggins when they were big. Yeah.
So I could see Weaver easily drafting a wing this offseason, just because we need depth there anyways. Even if Livers does play good, I can still see us drafting a wing, because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why not add depth when you can? But it's going to be very interesting to see what Livers can do, because everybody that is a Michigan fan knows what Livers can do. Livers can shoot. He can be a playmaker. He can be a facilitator. He's a great shot creator. He's a great team leader. And so it's like he can do all of these little things right, but sometimes it necessarily doesn't translate to the NBA. But he's shown in stretches of games that it does translate with him.
Right.
And so if he can improve on that and show consistency, I think he's going to be fine. But it's just more of like, what does Bojan do? Yeah. Because you saw after the Sadiq trade there, one of our first games, and you saw Livers have a great night. You had Hami have a great night.
Yep.
And then the next game following, they disappeared. And why is that? Well, you look at how many shots Bojan took, and you're like, oh, I can understand why they didn't get.
Or even Sadiq at the time.
Yep. So it really comes down to what Bojan does. Because oftentimes Bojan takes matters into his own hands, and that really hurts our team.
Totally.
Because we don't play as a team. We individualize. We look for filling up the box score for just individual players. So like Bojan, let's say he's having a cold night. He's only has 15 points heading into the fourth quarter, and he's like, yeah, I want to score. So yeah, he's going to hold on to the ball almost the entire quarter.
Right.
But my big thing with that is, what does Bojan do? Because Livers has all the potential in the world to be good in this league and on the Pistons and help us win. But it's just more of like, can Livers overcome the shadow of Bojan?
Yeah, and I see Livers being kind of like a Tyler Hero type of role guy on our Pistons team. We saw Tyler Hero be an influential part of the Miami Heat playoff series, going through the East. So, I think that's what Livers can be for us. It just depends on these. I'm not going to put it all on these last 23 games, but these are this is a crucial stretch for him. Yeah, improving himself now that we don't have Sadiq Bey,
and he also needs to stay healthy.
That too.
He has a terrible record of getting injured constantly.
Right.
So if he can just take out the injuries and overcome the shadow, we're going to see something special potentially. But I hope we do.
Yeah. The second player I wanted to have like a player to watch is obviously James Wiseman. What I want to see from him is shades of the player he will be when Cade Cunningham is here. We don't need him to be spectacular. We know that we're not making the playoffs. We need him to, one, stay healthy, and then two, show him playing well with Killian Hayes, for example, because we want to see kind of who he will be when Cade Cunningham is next to him. Because if he's showing, all right, this guy's a baller, which like we suspect, then we can know that, okay, we have our 4 or 5 for next season, and that's for sure going to be Wiseman. And Cade he'll be ready for Cade.
Yeah, and we look at Wiseman in his rookie year. We saw what he did with Steph Curry, who is arguably one of the best point guards of all time.
Yeah.
In my opinion, is the best shooter of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen what Wiseman can do next to a star point guard. And that's what we have in Cade. And Killian's not like a superstar or anything, but he's still good.
Good passer.
So if we are able to see and look side by side to what Wiseman can do with Curry compared to what he can do with Cade and Killian there, we should be fine because, I mean, his rookie year, his first game of the season, he had like 30 points.
Yeah.
So it's like he can play.
Yeah, absolutely.
He just needs opportunities too. And so I think the big thing for him is what can he do defensively for us? Because we saw him in that first game for us. He was solid. Mm-hmm. He didn't have a bad game. He wasn't turning the ball over. Right. He was taking good shots. It wasn't all like, I'm going to just back you down in the paint and hit you with a hook or anything like that. He was stepping out, taking shots. So It's like he can do so much more than what people think he can do. And then on top of that, you look at his speed. Dude, that's the big takeaway from me is his speed. He's 7 foot, and he's one of the fastest guys on the court. Yeah, that is scary.
It is.
And he's when you compare that with Jalen Duren, who is also a beast and is really long,
quick.
My big takeaway for Wiseman the rest of the season is defense, because there's a reason why he was a Gatorade Player of the Year. There's a reason why he was the number one recruit in his class.
Didn't he average like 5 blocks in college?
Yeah.
I mean, 5 people, 5 blocks.
And in high school, he was getting triple teamed. Like he's good. Yeah, he's not bad.
Right.
So I just think if we slowly ease him in, not force him to take certain shots that he's not comfortable with taking, or trying to swap him in a position that he normally doesn't play. I think as long as we just slowly bring him in, see what he can do with Killian and see what he can do with Cade next year, I think that is a good step forward. And then if we can see who he is defensively, because defensively for us in his first game, it wasn't like, whoa, fill up the box score or anything. But it was like you saw his effect. You saw what he brought to the team, because the team defensively actually played better.
Dude, there was like a 5-minute stretch where the Celtics couldn't do squat. Yeah. And it was when Wiseman was in.
Literally.
I'm like, whoa.
So when you add a guy who's 7 foot and is fast alongside of Duren and Stu and all of these guys who are kind of defensive-esque players, this could be a good thing for us in the future because we suck defensively. I'm sorry, we do.
Right.
So
and we only can get better defensively with a guy like Wiseman, I feel like.
And not saying that Bey couldn't have done this himself, because Bey, in his own sense, he was good at defense. But he's nowhere near as good of a defender as Wiseman is, or what Wiseman could be. Like, there's a reason why he was taken in the top 2. He's that good. For real. So I think for Wiseman going forward, it's what can he bring to the team as a whole, not just focused on one area, because we've seen what he can do in the past. Yep. We've seen the hot streaks that he's been on his rookie year and everything. So if we can see what he can do with Killian, that's good. And if we can see what he can do defensively for us, which we kind of already seen, that's great.
Totally. I totally agree. What are some of your other thoughts on what we can expect from the Pistons?
See, so outside of what my dad was saying, for what he would want to see, I was going like, well, looking at all of the league stats and everything, I'm like, that's terrible. That's even worse. Right. And then it just kept going. Yeah. So we are 25th in the league for points per game. That's not
kind of surprising.
That's not good.
No, it's not.
We're averaging 112 points per game, which is high, but I
feel like that's a lot.
It is a lot.
And we're 25th?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not good. It's not good. And as I said earlier, we average the 7th most turnovers per game, the most fouls per game at 22.4. Yeah. That is awful.
It is bad.
You shouldn't be fouling that much. Nope. Because we've had games where Bojan literally doesn't want them to take the wide open layup, so he just rips the dude to the ground. It's like, okay, that was lazy. Yeah, that almost costed us the game, but it was lazy.
James Harden-esque move.
Literally. We don't need you to be James Harden. We're fine. The Pistons are 21st in the league in rebounds per game. That is awful. The Pistons are 27th in the league in defensive rebounds per game. The Pistons are 29th.
Yeah.
Pretty much the worst.
Yeah.
In the league in points allowed per game at 120.
Yeah.
You can't win when our numbers are that bad.
No.
You can't. So what I kind of want to see is, I'm not saying be top 10 in every category. Well, not be top 10 in turnovers per game
right.
or fouls per game.
Right.
But if we can improve our stats from how many points we allow, like I said with Wiseman early defensively, and what we can expect from points per game, because we have players who can shoot. Mm-hmm. We have guys who can be playmakers. Alec Burks, Bojan, like all these guys can play. So I just want to see these guys just take a step forward, not a step backward, because this season, the last 20 some games last year was great for us because we saw a drastic improvement from the previous season. And so if we can make a bigger step from this last 20 games than last year, I'm even happier. But I'm afraid that we may not, because statistical speaking, we are actually worse than we were last year at this point, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So if we can just take a little step here and there forward in the last 23 games, I think I'll be content with that. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, we're next. I'm not going to be like, oh great, our team sucks. But if we can just improve on the little things like turnovers and fouls, I'm fine.
You were talking about how right now we're on track to have like a worse season than we did last year. So that kind of brings me to talk about Dwayne Casey a little bit and the coaching of the Detroit Pistons. I kind of want to sit back and watch how Casey continues to address the media in these last 23 games. Lots of talk about possibly some moves in the coaching staff situation, not just Casey himself, but with assistant coaches, kind of trying to get some new faces in there. I kind of want to see how Casey continues to carry himself, if he starts to show a little bit more frustration towards the end of the season. And I kind of want to see if Weaver starts getting questioned about the coaching situation. I like Casey, but with a couple losing seasons now, with some young, talented, we thought players, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like his job position isn't necessarily on the rocks, but it's not in the best situation. So I kind of want to see where that storyline continues in the offseason, and kind of watch from afar, because I wouldn't be shocked if there's some changes.
Yeah. So you look back at Casey early on in his career. We talked about him in our first episode. Mm-hmm. What he did for Toronto was huge, because Toronto wouldn't be who they are today with a championship under their belt without Casey, because Casey developed majority of those players.
He definitely did.
And so it like nobody knew who Pascal Siakam was. Nobody knew who OG Anunoby really was, or Norman Powell, or a bunch of these guys, Fred VanVleet even.
Right.
So when you look at who he developed, and you look at their team now and their success recently, you're like, oh, okay, Casey actually did a good job, because these guys are still in Toronto. They're still winning. So it's like, okay, we have a positive outlook on things. So I'm not saying Casey's going to be the coach that brings a championship to Detroit. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, because realistically, as the path continues and how things have gone under each season, I'm not going to sit here and go like, oh, Casey's going to be the coach that wins it all, because I don't think he will be. Just in the sense of like today, Nate McMillan got fired out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Nate McMillan is a great coach. Mm-hmm. He is a great coach. The Atlanta Hawks are 8th in the East.
Yeah.
They have a winning record pretty much, and he just got fired.
Yeah.
So it's like, when you're firing a good coach like that, as an example, on a good caliber team in Atlanta, and then you compare that with Casey, who is developing these guys into something special, but it's just taken a hot sec. So it's like, Casey could be out at any point in time.
Right.
Because stuff happens fast in the NBA. Yeah, like you look at the Utah Jazz. They let go of Quinn Snyder. It was a mutual agreement. They parted ways together. But he sat out there with nobody wanting him for a while. And now he's emerging as a favorite for the Hawks job after McMillan got fired.
Okay.
So it's like all these great coaches have opportunities, but if their team owner or their GM, they don't like the path that they're going down, you can flip a switch and they're gone.
Yeah.
So if Casey, I'm not saying he's doing a bad job, because I personally think he's doing a good job for what he was handed with, because he wasn't handed a Ferrari. Let's be realistic here.
He was handed a 75 Bronco, which looks beautiful, but it's terrible inside.
But yeah, if he doesn't continue to show growth with our team, he may not be here 2 years from now. And I can see that, honestly. But if he can continue to do a good job in developing these guys, like look at Jalen Duren as an example. His first game versus now. Like, obviously, Casey had a hand in his development.
Totally.
And then you look at Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey early on was lackadaisical in the sense of turning the ball over willy-nilly.
Agreed.
And now he's cool, calm, and collected, and he's doing his thing. So it just shows you how good these guys have gotten. And yeah, you could say that's experience. But when you have a great coach in Dwayne Casey, who in his state is in the Hall of Fame, by the way, there's no reason why Dwayne Casey should be on a hot seat right now. And I don't think he is, because our team, yes, statistically speaking, are even worse than we were last year. But we don't have Cade right now. And Cade is a big reason why we made a huge jump last year.
Right.
So when you have a leader back with us next year, with all of these key young guys who have developed under Casey, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, it definitely helps knowing that, especially as a fan.
Yeah.
Look from the outside looking in. Well, we got Cade back next year. You know, we can kind of hold our hats on that, and it feels good to be able to have that, because if you didn't, I'd be like, oh no, we have so much stock in this year's draft. But we got Cade coming back, and I'm very, speaking of the draft picks, I'm very interested to see who we end up with, because it's all up in the air.
A lot of people are saying Scoot Henderson and Amoni Bates, but
I don't see us getting Scoot.
I don't really want Amoni. No offense, even though you're a Michigan boy, I
think he's good. I don't want him in the lottery though. Yeah, I'd take him in like the late first.
He's projected to go second round, but
I could see us getting him late round.
I don't know, because he was nothing special at Memphis, and he got injured, and all that stuff happened, and then he goes to Eastern. And Eastern, it is D1, but it's not like Big Ten basketball.
Right.
So he's not playing against top tier talent.
You know, it would be kind of interesting if we did get him, because that'd be 3 Memphis guys we got under Penny Hardaway.
Yep. I mean, James Wiseman, Jalen Duren, and Amoni Bates.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Before we wrap up episode number 16, I want to talk about a record prediction. There's 23 games left. What are you kind of looking like on a guesstimate of what these last 23 games look like?
Oof. There's just
there's so many ways you can go.
There's a lot of ways you can go. I don't even know where to start, honestly, because they're 15 and 44 right now.
42, something. Yeah, in that general sense.
Let me see here. They are.
Yeah, I think
15 and 44.
Oh wow, you got it right. Okay, I like it.
Okay,
I like it.
So with the last 23 games, what do I see? I want at least 5 more wins.
Okay. So are you going 5 and 8? Is it?
Is that 5?
Oh no. 5 and 18. 5 and 18.
Well, I
thought there's 13 games left.
I want a minimum of 5 wins.
Oh, minimum. Okay.
But no, I just want to see us improve statistically, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like, I want us to win out, because if we win out,
no.
There's no way we're getting Wemby then.
No,
but
we're not even making the playoffs, so it's like, who cares?
No. So, as one of my friends would say, he wants us to tank.
Yeah.
And I don't want to tank. I want to be competitive every night. But if you're competitive every night and you still tank, I mean, it's a win-win.
That's really what this season's been, because I do feel like our guys are trying out there. You know what I mean?
Because they do try. And so I just want a minimum of at least 5 more wins.
As far as a record prediction post All-Star break, 23 games. You know, you said a minimum of 5 games. I want more than that. I want more. I'm probably going, let's go over 500. Let's go 13-10. Let's say the guys figure it out the last 5 games, go on a 5-game winning streak. They pick out 2 here, 1 there, and then they finish it out the season with 5 wins. I feel like that's a great way to end a terrible season. You know what I mean? It's like a movie finish. Go on, end with a 5-game winning streak, which is probably would be our longest winning streak, because then at least heading into the offseason, you can kind of do what the Lions did this year. You know, they were able to take out the Packers out of the playoffs. They were able to hang their hat on something for the offseason. It would be awesome if the Pistons could do that, finish off with 5 wins, and then head into the offseason. No Cade's coming back. We have a couple draft picks, and then you can kind of be like, 5-game winning streak. We did it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'd kind of like that. So I'm going to go with 13-10.
All right.
It's a little hopeful, but as a Pistons fan, you got to have a little hope. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm going to go with
That's why I'm hoping on 5 wins. Because it should be a guarantee.
Right. It's going to be 100% guess rate if you get over 5. Exactly. I like it. Exactly. Where me, I'm being a little more risky with my money. You know what I mean? I'm not making an actual bet. So
no.
But if there's any betting companies that want to sponsor us, we're all about it.
Who knows?
Well, that will do it for episode number 16 of the Revved Up 906 podcast. We have new merch.
Yep.
Grind Clothing Co. is our merch sponsor. You can find the link in the description and the link in our YouTube bio. Go follow Grind Clothing Co. on Instagram. This is one of the sweatshirts for all the people wondering. So go check it out. The prices aren't bad. Plus, dude, upgrade your style, guys. Upgrade your style. You need some revved up in your life. So make sure to go buy some merch. And go follow us on Instagram at revved.up906. We're posting all kinds of clips, debate topics, over-under posts. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.